was the mini conference.
So I gotta wait.
It's okay.
Worth closing for?
Face that it's just.
Yes and no. I mean, it's good to get a
Network
chance to
is-
visit with other librarians and talk about stuff. So in that sense, yes. I didn't think the sessions were very strong, but,
Well attended.
in the morning, yes.
Cause you know there isn't a
It just
gray
died off
It
in the
was last
afternoon.
year.
And so,
Last year we went.
You can bleach it.
Was it
I
last
think
year?
last or the year before, I forget, but yeah. I'm gonna suggest that maybe they go like a little over half a day. I think it might be better.
It's not enough to really.
Well, it would be easier for them because they wouldn't have to come up with as many sessions. And then there are a lot of people that, you know, if they're traveling, they want to get
Sure.
back. Or if they're on the clock, they need to get back before. So that might be a way to go. I don't know, we'll see. Oh,
Are we ready?
yes, actually, the, almost.
Ready, Cricket? Maybe not.
He's muted you, maybe.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay. I would.
I'm ready to listen.
Okay. Can we start?
Your name.
It says it's still preparing. So, oh, there we go. Now we're live.
Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order for Wednesday, April 30th of the Sturgis Public Library Board. Has everyone had a chance to look over last month's minutes?
Yes. I'd move to approve.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Okay, that motion passes then. Going on, we'll go into financial reports. Chris?
Not much to talk about. I'm trying to make sure that everything's reconciled, so I've been doing that the past few days, and so far everything looks good. There are just a couple of questions I have for Ann, but it's actually has to do with last year, not this year, so I think as far as the city budget stuff goes, that's pretty good. The checking account is good. We had another $100 donation for the summer reading, so that's great. And I do need, if you look at the Dunn Trust savings, I need to find out, we have a new rep since Janine has retired over at First Interstate Bank, and I forget which one it is now, but I've got her card. And I need to call her and find out. I think we were talking last month about moving the savings accounts to the high yield business account. And we did that, and as you can see, our interest for the Dunn Trust went from like $11 a month up to $90 a month, which is fantastic. We did have the $50 service charge, which my only guess, and I need to find out, is maybe because the balance was under $50,000, and I think it's month by month. So since we didn't start that till the end of the month, they may have retroactively said, well, for that month, you didn't have $50,000 the whole time, so that's why it cost you the $50. But I will find out what's going on. And Janine had said, if that's the case, just let us know and we can
Reimburse.
change that. So, so that should get itself taken care of. And then the Memorial Miscellaneous Savings made $108 in interest, so that's great. So that's really gonna be a big help toward boosting those numbers as time goes. Yeah, so unless you guys have any specific questions, I don't, I guess, have any specifics to talk about as far as what we spent money on. Books and periodicals and DVDs and programming. And, hotspots for the year, that payment was, well, that's city budget though, but that was, for the year, for the six, or, no, five.
600 it says here.
Hmm?
600, oh.
The 600
five.
for Mobile Beacon, yeah, is for 5 hotspots, because that's all we could put in the budget for this year. So we'll see how that goes. I budgeted for more next year, because I think there is a need. We've actually, over the past month, even with the 10 that we have, we've had people putting some on hold because we didn't have any available for them to check out. So that may get a little tighter here through the rest of the year, but we'll see. We'll take a look at the numbers and go from there.
Will those be checked out as often after school's out?
Yeah, they're busy all year,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So, did we talk about the Black Hills Community Foundation?
Oh, no, I guess that's on there too, isn't it? Yeah, we got the first quarter, statement. Which is not bad. The second quarter is gonna be a little more interesting, I think, because this was through March 31st, and the markets didn't really go wonky till beginning of April, right?
Right.
So, yeah, so we'll see what that looks like. For second quarter, I haven't paid much attention to see if the numbers have come back to where they were before they took a dive, but, yeah, we'll just have to see how that goes. We did get our, disbursement check, and I put that in, earmarked for the Elliott Maintenance Fund, so that's good.
Any questions, discussions on financials? Okay. Director's report then.
We need to approve financials first,
Do we? Okay,
yeah.
I'll move to approve.
okay. Do I have a
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Okay, the motion passes for approval of financials.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so, yeah, we were talking briefly before the meeting about the mini conference that was Monday. And it was, it's good to get together with other librarians. I was in a breakout session that talked about legislative issues, so we kind of did we talked about 1239 quite a bit, and talked about trying to be more proactive for next session, and kind of try and get out in front of things with local legislators, and just kind of talk to them and see, what are your big concerns, and then see if we can address those. The prediction is that there will be more of the same next year, because the people that put those bills forward in the first place didn't really get what they wanted. So there's thought that it's going to be more about trying to develop a rating or institute a rating system for books, might be the big one next year. I was thinking that they were going to probably try to change the Miller test, but that would be a bigger that'd take more work, I think, because that would definitely be challenged just as soon as they did it. But someone else was saying, who was involved in stuff, was saying they think it's going to be a rating system, which is really problematic as well. So,
Should have those legislators come to a board meeting prior to the.
it could be, that probably wouldn't be bad. I was going to reach out and, see if I could have, invite them to the library and talk to them about stuff and show them the layout and all that. But yeah, kind of like there used to be the the legislative breakfast, where area legislators would come and the city would talk about their concerns for the year, and then the legislators would talk about what they think is gonna be going on. And they didn't do that this year, at least the city didn't. I don't know if there was one at the county level or not, but yeah, something like that and that's in November as it gets closer to the session, but maybe before that, yeah, September, October.
Well, I would think, considering we have one of, who's the young lady that's former librarian, Rice?
Yeah, or her mother was, right?
One of them, well, I think that John Carley appears to be the major, if it's an issue for the
Carley.
library. I think he's the one. And the closer we keep to him, the better off we are, I think.
He is doing, well, Piedmont is having a monthly potluck with legislators. Happens to be on Carly's property, but I guess that's neither here nor there, but, so they're trying to institute something with that, and Megan, the Piedmont librarian, was saying that it's a way for people to bring up concerns. I think it's supposed to be maybe less political and more practical as a way to just meet with legislators and see them and stuff. And so, so that could end up being helpful for the library, since I'm imagining Megan will be there and asking them questions. But yeah, we'll have to see, I think, but
It seemed to me if he has it on his property and he's the institutor, then the people that are in favor of what he does would be more apt to attend.
Yes.
apparently he's not gonna be there all the time. And it's supposed to be a community potluck, so,
But I think if we bring him
But
here,
anyway.
if they could see who's on this board, it would help,
mhm.
help our case sometimes to ask some of those questions in advance.
I mean, I know I reached out to both Kathy and John Carley, and neither of whom I received a response either. I reached out multiple
Yeah.
times, and not so much as an email.
Kathy
In response.
responded to me
I didn't get any response.
on the subject of the library.
Yeah.
I mean, I reached out on the library term and as an educator, but
Would it be worthwhile to possibly host something for other boards and libraries just in our district? And have something here where we could maybe answer questions
Possibly.
ahead of time, or have
Yeah.
them explain their reason for supporting some of these bills?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to look into doing something like, do that in the fall, early fall.
John's gonna be there for a while, I think.
I would imagine. Yeah,
And so that doesn't bode well for what, some of the problems that we have.
no,
And somebody needs to stand up to that. I was impressed with him. He came to the door and I talked to him into the campaign. It wasn't until after he was elected and then I started going to the Cracker Barrels.
mhm.
He's an engaging person and has opinions.
Well, yeah, and I think, that overall concern that there's pornography in our libraries, I think it's pretty easy to say, look, there is not. And,
It's easy for them to say that there is, and unfortunately, the people that don't know.
well, and that's, yeah.
Branded.
That's something I brought up in this meeting that we had at the conference, was that I kind of see that as, it's a really easy way to get people fired up. Whether you necessarily believe it or not, oh, there's porn in the library, and then all of a sudden, oh, people are in arms, and then if you vote against that bill, it's, well, why do you want pornography in the library? So,
number one, I mean, it all comes down to people are grappling with all of the issues, and it is the thing that people have latched onto that you can control, because the real issue is phones.
well,
And
right,
what kids
and
are
the,
exposed to on, but that you can't, they can't do anything about it, but they
Right.
can do the old school, and it's been done time and time and time again. I mean,
Right.
listening to, South Dakota Public Television, or listening to the radio, and they're doing the whole history of the library, and, when women, they had to have separate women's rooms and men's rooms, reading rooms, because it would be improper for the two sexes to read. I mean, it's a tale as old as time, and it's gonna,
Right. Which is,
because it's the
yeah.
thing that people feel like they can actually yes, we made progress. When, in fact, even if something passed, we don't act, preaching to the choir, but it's going to
Well,
keep coming back
but
to the
yeah.
libraries because it's the thing that people feel
Yeah.
like they can control.
In Ireland, if women when they finally were able to come to the pubs, they had to be in a separate room, and they called that a snug. It's called a snug, SNUG, and they still have those rooms because the libraries haven't, the pubs haven't changed. So that's used now for private conversation, but the whole idea
was
women
keep
could
the
go
women
in there
apart,
and
yeah.
sit without the men being able to see them.
right. Yep. Out of sight, out of mind. Yep.
I don't know if there's anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, that was the kind of the big thing we were talking about at the mini conference, at least at that session. So we'll see. And Scotty Brook, who works for the state library, kind of brought up a big point where she was saying, they're talking about trying to put all this on, especially on school librarians, because really the brunt of this is school libraries. And she said, you're asking, she said, schools aren't required to have an official librarian, like a licensed librarian. So often, I think she said 80% of the schools, it's a para.
The para, yeah.
So you've got someone who has no training in how to run a library or how to choose a collection or how to weed, who's also probably teaching in 8 or 10 other classrooms during the day off and on, getting paid maybe $15 an hour, and you're making them, you're dumping all this on them. And it's like, if you want to solve the problem, if you think there are inappropriate books in the library, then have the school hire, and it used to be that you had to have a librarian. And not anymore. And so if you do that, then you're going to get people that are trained in what to do. And, so she's like, that's really the bigger problem.
Interesting is the place that people go for all of these things, the Book Look site.
Right.
So inadvertently, I hope it was inadvertently, but when you curate all these excerpts from these different books that are supposedly pornographic, and you've taken passages completely out of context.
Right.
Essentially, they have created porn because they have taken the context out, and they just have, and that site makes it past our web filters at the school.
Oh, wow.
So they have
Sure.
created a site that is
Right.
far worse, where kids
Although-
actually could
yeah.
just go read
They don't have to
things out of
struggle through
context.
the books.
Well, and they don't have to read the passage within context with the I don't know, it's just all
Yeah. Well, yeah. And apparently the word is that site is going away.
oh, thank goodness.
Well, it's
Well, probably to be
going-
replaced by
Well,
something
what we
worse.
think it's going to happen is it's probably going to be rebranded as something else, just because it's got such a negative connotation right now that I guess the people who run it feel like maybe they're not being taken seriously. Yeah, booklooks.com. What they do is they go through and they take passages out of books that have usually offensive words
Right.
or
But you could
It's
take
never
a
violence,
paragraph
but
out
it's
of,
always
well,
sexual.
it's usually sexual, but you could take a passage out of Maya Angelou's book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which is a beautiful autobiography. But you could take the passage where she is sexually assaulted as a young girl and just say, this is in a book in the library. Well, it's within a context of the greater work. Life
Yeah.
isn't,
right.
all sunshine
that's-
and roses.
Well, and that's,
So
I
this
think
thing,
also.
it just curates all of the, anyway.
Right, where we need to do a better job of informing legislators of what these sites are geared to do. And what they don't do is actually show you the whole context. They don't talk about plot, they don't talk about why that's
Library
in there.
merit.
It's just, here is, you know, and some of them even just count the number of swear words.
Yeah.
You know, the F word is in this book
This many
370 times.
Deadwood would never have made it.
You know? So, well, right, and so, but anyway, so there, we're trying to be proactive is kind of what I got out of that. Also, I guess related to the mini conference, which is in Rapid City every year, Rapid City is getting rid of their Rapid City Journal microfilm from, I think it's 18-something up until like 1980 or 90, I forget. Anyway, so they asked if anybody wanted it, and I said, yeah. Well, Lead had already said, yeah. I said, well, that's great. We know where it is. Well, Lead doesn't think they have enough room for it, because it's about 7.5 feet by 4.5 feet tall, two big cabinets that are full of it. So I think so it looks like we're gonna go ahead and adopt those from them. It'll be a little bit of a process because the microfilm has to be surplused by the library board, but the actual cabinets that it's contained in has to be surplused by the city. So once that's all done, they'll give me a call and we'll go grab them and haul them over here.
Does that have a long life for the film itself?
I think so. I think fairly long, yeah. I don't know how much, I don't think there's a lot of silver nitrate in the negative, so I don't think that's an issue. But we don't have a subscription to newspapers.com, so we can't access that stuff. And I don't see us having money in the budget to do it anytime soon. So this way we will have a good chunk of that archive that people can use if they need. So that's cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Looking at the stats on the board report, numbers are pretty good. There was a kind of a weird thing if you look down at Libby circulation. When I pulled it up on Monday, it was actually less than I had listed for last month. So I'm not quite sure why that number was off. It was off by about 600 or 700. So I don't know. Overdrive was being a little wonky on Monday, so it could have just given me bad information. But at any rate, it's somewhere between 5,900 and 6,900 for the year. Like I said, we have another 100 donated to the summer reading program, which is great. The quilt show is coming down on Friday. If anybody wants to help, talk to Kelly. Unless you have enough people. Yeah, vote if you haven't on the winning. Green Thumb Gala is next week. So Friday and Saturday are the drop-off days. Well, and they usually get dropped off into next week as well, but then we'll have those up and that could be good. And then John Olson is our artist for the rest of May. He'll actually be putting his stuff up on Saturday, and then we'll put the Green Thumb stuff up after he gets his stuff on the walls. Programming and meetings are all pretty much the same. Facility updates, everything's going pretty well. The only thing, and I neglected to put it on here, the Sherman Street door that's not the handicap side, I think the tension on the door needs a little bit of an adjustment because it slams sometimes, but that should be just a matter of tightening there's usually a nut or a screw that you tighten to fix that, so that should be fine. It's not broken or anything, it just may need a little tweaking. I still haven't heard about the Friends group and the 501 status. I checked last week and there still was no information on the IRS site. We will get a letter once it's done, but we would know probably a week ahead of time online. So the budget cuts to the state library. George Seaman, the state librarian, was supposed to be at the meeting on Monday, but he wasn't able to make it. Scotty Brook said a few things. She's like, I don't know a lot about it, but I can tell you what I do know and what I'm allowed to say, which is that the state library got half of the IMLS grant money last week, I think on Thursday. They got notification that half the federal grant money is on its way, and they have to wait to see about the other half. There were about, I think, 80 employees in that office in Washington, and there are now, I think, 14. So anything happening is going to take quite a while, I think, to figure out. What that means as far as how that money is going to be used by the state library, they just don't know yet, because they just found out, a week ago. So they're trying to figure out what they can do with that money and how they can best use it. So we just don't know. There are about 4 employees that left to go to other jobs, which is about what they were going to lose in staff. So that has kind of taken care of itself. They're trying to figure out if they need to shift jobs or if they'll actually end up having to hire somebody or not. So that'll be part of this equation too. So there's a lot we just don't know right now because they don't know. So that's all of that stuff. The state courier service, because of these funding cuts, is ending today. The Black Hills Consortium courier, the oars, their contract ends in September. So as far as local ILLs, that will still keep going through September. After that, we just don't know. And we'll talk more about that when we get to the budget. And we still I haven't heard anything about the salary survey. That's supposed to be this month, or in May sometime. And then the last thing on the board report is that Kathy is going to be out for 6 weeks. She's having surgery. She was diagnosed with stage 1 breast cancer. So she's going in next Thursday, I think, is her surgery, and then she'll be out for 6 weeks because of that. So we won't have her around, but she's trained everybody else on her job, so it should work pretty well. My job is to be as snarky as she is, so I'm working on it. Yeah, I don't know if that's possible, but I'll do my best. I was gonna, well, yeah, so that's where we're at with that. And yeah, so that's about all I know. Yeah. So for the, let's see, we don't have any old business, right? Yeah, unfinished business, there wasn't anything that needed to be worked on. If we want to jump ahead to new business, if that's okay.
Yes.
A couple of things. The first is a change to the collection policy to reflect HB 1239. And I put the new law in your packet. And I put the collection policy in there. I didn't print out the whole collection policy on your packets because most of it isn't applicable to what we need to change. So the only thing that we really need to change is the reconsideration process and the procedures for challenged materials. And if you look at that page, I think it's page 24, it actually lists if somebody wants to challenge one of the books in the library, this is the process that they have to go through. There's a panel is put together. The panel looks at the book and makes a determination of whether it is obscene or is not obscene, or if they're just worried about it being inappropriate material. It could be there's something in the teen area that they think is maybe too mature for teens. This panel would look at it and then make a recommendation to the library board and say, yeah, we think we could move this into the adult section. Or if it's something that they want removed from the library, then we would have to make that decision. That decision is presented to the board, and then the board looks at it. If the person doesn't like what the panel comes up with, then they can appeal to the board, in which you guys would then look at the materials and make a decision. And then your decision is final. And they can't, they have to wait 3 years before they bring it up again if it's the same book. Or if the book has been looked at anytime in the past 3 years, it's not eligible for reconsideration. The only difference that the law makes now is that if the person who brought the complaint does not agree with your decision, then their next step is to take it to the city council. And I'll make a report for the city council, letting them know that this is, that this is happening, in case they're not aware of it. And then the city council decides, in this case, it would be if they said, this is obscene, and the library board said, well, no, it doesn't fit the requirements, it doesn't pass the Miller test as far as being obscene, they could take it to the city council and say, this is obscene, you guys need to look at it. Then the city council would have to apply the Miller test to it. And if the person was not happy with the city council's decision, then it can go to court.
Have we looked at the Miller test before?
I don't know, but the Miller test is actually, I've got it in the, it might not be on one of the copies. If you have page 22 in your packet?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, on page 22 and 23. So the Miller test is it's pretty much used all across the country. And it says something is obscene if the dominant theme of which, taken as a whole, appeals to the prurient interest. It is patently offensive because it affronts contemporary community standards relating to the description or representation of sadomasochistic abuse or sexual conduct, and it lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. So it has to meet all three of those. If it meets all three of those requirements, then it's deemed legally obscene, and then it would have to be removed.
I don't see that in any of them.
It's right here.
Page 20,
Yeah, it starts at the
2
very
and-
bottom of 22 and then continues.
22 and 23,
up
are
to
you missing
23.
those pages?
Well, it's page 22, but this,
Of the
yeah.
packet.
I see.
Right here, yeah, it's that and that. So that's essentially, that's the Miller test. Yeah, as written in South Dakota law, that's
So
the
even
Miller
if
test.
if it met two of the criteria, if it didn't meet all three, it's.
If it doesn't meet all three, it's not considered obscene, yes. So if the city council looked at it and said, well, no, it doesn't meet the definition of obscenity, and the person didn't like that, then they would have to take it to court. And I guess sue the city, I would think, to get it removed. So it
Really have to dislike a book.
well, yes, you would really have to believe that it is, obscene, yeah. And, you know, I will say again, we don't have
Right,
obscene
yeah.
books in the library.
Yeah.
We're not in the habit of purchasing material like that. I mean, one, because, well, legally we can't, but two, that's not what our patrons want to read.
Right.
They want cozy mysteries. They want Amish romances. We're getting that stuff for them. Now, and as, well, whether you like them or not, those are in no way obscene at all. They're the opposite of that. So, yeah, so that's why, in the policy, I got rid of the decision of the board is final, because that's not the case anymore. And I added the next paragraph. So if the reconsideration is due, so if they're not saying it should be removed because it's obscene, then the Board of Trustees, if you guys say, no, we're not removing it, that's the end. Now, if they say it's obscene, then they could take this next step. So that's why I said if the reconsideration is due to alleged obscene content, the complainant may appeal the Board of Trustees' decision to the governing body of the public library to determine whether any matter or material is obscene. Any determination made by the governing body as to whether any matter or material is obscene is subject to judicial review in a court of competent jurisdiction, which is just the language taken out of the bill and put in there. And if we're okay with that, which I think is, I mean, that's really all we need to do, is we just need to say, you have this option if you don't like the decision.
Right.
And that, I think, is really the extent of our legal obligation, is that in the policy, it's letting them know that that's what they can do. So if we're okay with this wording, unless you want to think about it and try something else, I will run this by the city attorney to make sure that it passes muster. And then next month, we can look at if there's any changes that he wanted to make. And then if there were any changes, then we could ratify that in June, because we'd have to have it, I think, ready by July 1st, I think is when it goes into effect. So that's where we're at for that.
So can I make a motion to accept the change as written? So you can check with the city attorney?
Okay.
So
I
is this
motion.
considered first reading?
No.
Or no, just we're approving your change, and then once it's
Well,
written, then we have first reading, correct?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I would,
It could be, I would suggest maybe worded to accommodate the city attorney's changes if there are any.
sure, okay.
I motion to accept this to pass on to the city attorney to check.
You don't need a motion.
We don't need a motion? No? Okay.
Well,
Good.
I
Check with the city
mean, it's
attorney.
under new business, so we could move to,
Send it on.
Send it on.
yeah, move
Never
this up the
hurts.
line, so
I
yeah.
move to send it.
I want you to be in the minutes. I really,
Do we
do
have a
too.
second? Favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign.
all right,
Your motion passes, Kristen.
all right.
All right.
So the next is interlibrary loan. And this consortium, as it looks now, like I said, today is the cutoff for the courier across the state. And in September is the cutoff for the consortium courier. So as of now, if you want a book and no one in the consortium has it, we would have to have it mailed. And that's $5 one way. So we don't have money in the budget to pay for that right now. Well, that's what we need to decide. Do we want the policy to say that if you want a book that needs to come by mail, it'll cost you $5? Or do we want to just say, no, we're not going to do that for now, and we can revisit it in the budget next year if we can get money? And then, as part of that, it would be, do we want to put a limit on how many ILLs a person can have in a year that need to go by mail?
I think it'd be interesting to know how often it's asked for something outside the consortium, like,
I can give you those numbers. Give me just a second. I was gonna put it on the sheet, but I didn't get to it today. But I can tell you, oh, nope, not that way, hold on. It's, well, and see here, the other part of this then is what's gonna happen in September when we lose
right,
the regional courier? Because then anything you wanted, if you wanted a book in Spearfish, yeah, sorry, it's gonna cost you $5. Now, I'm guessing that if that happens, that the rogue courier service would probably fire itself back up. And, you know, I can take books to Lead, Deadwood, Spearfish on my way home, or Whitewood, you know, so, and then as far as going the other direction, there's always people going. So it could, if the official courier is gone, there still could be moving books around that way. The other possibility that probably will come up is the consortium paying for the courier service ourselves. And we would probably split it up the way that, that Koha and everything else in the consortium is split up. It's on a percentage basis depending on the size of the library. So it would cost us anywhere between probably $2,600 to $3,500 a year to have the courier service. For the consortium. So for the Black Hills Library Consortium to hire Rolling Tomes to service our consortium only would, right now, they're getting about $26,000, $23,000, something like that, a year to do that. And the state library pays for that. So the state library is probably not going to be able to pay for that anymore. So then we have to decide, what do we want to do about this? That's where we're at. So the options are, we charge $5 for anything that gets mailed, or we give people a limit and try to increase our budget to cover that, or we just say, no, we're not gonna do it. I would say probably my opinion right now would be asking people to pay the $5, at least for this year, and maybe into the future, is gonna be the I don't want to say the best way to go, but might be the way to go.
And you do know how many people normally do use it?
Well, yeah, let me bring up the stats and I can tell you. Last year, we had, 9,100 interlibrary loans, but,
9,100?
yeah. And that's stuff that we loaned as well as stuff that people requested. There were, let's see, out of South Dakota, there were 19 coming in, 8 going out. In South Dakota via mail, there was 81 going out and 58 coming in, I think. So it's, yeah.
Minimal, but,
I
I mean, on the,
but see, here's
Yeah, but not
and
as
then here's the other piece of that puzzle. If one of our patrons wants a book that we have to get through the mail, we charge them the $5. That's gonna be the return mail to get it back. The lending library is gonna pay the $5 to get it to us. Or not. I don't,
Yeah, it says it
I
here.
don't see, like it's gonna cost you, we'll send it to you for $5. I think libraries are gonna probably try to avoid that as much as they can. But then if we get requests, if somebody wants a book that we've got, then we have to decide, well, do we have enough money in the budget to send it to them?
because that one person isn't gonna spend 10 to get it and send it back.
Well, I think logistically,
It's just too hard.
having to, like,
But 5 and 5, like in one library versus.
well, yeah, I mean, unless I guess you stick a $5 bill inside the book when you mail it back to them or something. I mean, so it could end up being problematic. And this is all still early because everything is still in flux. But I think for right now, we just decided up until we have our meeting today, we're just not doing it right now. But going forward, decide how we're gonna deal with this.
I would think that both at the state level, and I don't know what Christie was thinking to eliminate it.
Well, who knows, but,
That's what that was politically. But for us, with the budget as the city is, and I think that's not going to be the problem next year, at least I'm trusting. It would be better, I'm thinking more for the politics of it. It would be easier to say, I'm sorry, there's no budget for that this year, we're not doing that, if people ask. It doesn't sound like there's a lot of people, because if we pay it, or people are paying it, a minimum amount of people are gonna be aware that there's a cost. Not everybody uses it. If we say, I better news story if we said we can't do that, and that way everybody hears, oh, there's no budget for that, we're not sending library books out. I think it would be better to not do it as we don't incur the cost. And then we have, that's actually a point to be brought up for next year's budget, because we've had requests and we've had people that have made complaints.
I think it almost, I mean, I would agree to some extent, like, perhaps saying it's not in the budget because it is a weird time at the state level and potentially city, but also keeping track of the requests so that we do have some actual data points to say this number of people.
Well, and I mean, we have data points from last year, well, we have data points
Yeah.
from a lot of years past, so we can say, this is
many
about
people,
what it
this
would
is about
cost. I
what,
mean,
yeah. Yeah.
we loaned out, well, 7, 15, 18, 27, 28, 30, 34, 36, 38. We sent out 38 books that people requested.
Outside of the consortium, right?
Yes. Yes, we mailed 38 books, so, so that would be $190 our cost, is what we would have spent last year mailing books to people that requested them.
It's not in our budget at all this year.
It comes out of postage, but, you know, we're also, like we said earlier, you know, we're spending $73 for a roll of stamps, and we go through a couple rolls of, probably 4 or 5 rolls of stamps a year, so, yeah.
Chris, was this the same person that requested some of these books, or is it, I mean, can you tell that from the
Those
data?
stats we don't have.
Okay,
Now, but I can say that that 38 outgoing would not have been our patrons. Those are what other libraries requested. And I bring that up because I think a certain amount of this is gonna be playing well with others, you know? So if we expect Brookings to send us a book, because Brookings does send a lot of books our way, and not always through the courier, then there should be some reciprocity. We should say, yeah, well, we can send you guys a few too. So, you know, we're looking at, I mean, even if we go off last year's numbers, like $200 to send stuff out. That's not that much. And incoming was actually less than that. But that's with a with a courier. So it's going to be more, just because some of this stuff can't go out in the courier anymore. Now, this, depending on what happens, that could change, you know, with funding and all that. So I'm just trying to get ahead of it and see what you guys think might be the way to go moving forward. And as far as visibility, I think, I mean, we could still, that still could be visible, because the story would be, we now have to charge you $5 to get a book in that's not in the consortium. And so, you know, as far as that goes, you can still make it visible, and it wouldn't necessarily be that different. And again, until September, I think we're talking a relatively small number of people. And I guess I would rather give them the option, if they really, really want the book, they can pay us the $5. A lot of them will probably be like, oh, well, yeah, I don't want to do that. But I think having the option there would be helpful.
Yeah, if they're working on something and they really need it, that would be good,
Yeah. And I think that's going to be a relatively small number of people.
probably.
And, you know, and we can shift the budget around to eat that $190.
It doesn't affect our budget as it stands now. I mean, it's not significant.
No. just a few less books about Ireland.
For a vote from us?
Well, just some guidance as far as what you guys think. Since it would affect our policy, at least temporarily, I don't think we need to rewrite the policy until all this gets settled.
Well, again, I think that you're saying, giving them the option. Mr. Thompson, if you want that book, we can find it, it's gonna cost you $5. And if you say, why? Well, because that's a city budget issue. That's a factor for next year's, I mean, we're gonna start working on budget pretty soon.
Right.
And so if those kinds of things, that adds to, that's something I can bring to that
Mhm.
group as we're setting budgets, and something you can,
Yeah.
when you make your presentation.
Right.
So I would think continuing to do it, but adding the $5 option is a good idea. But some of that, again, I don't know, I don't have any history of the library per se, I'm just talking in terms of budget. If budget, because there's, I haven't talked to Christie in a long time, so I don't know, I've never asked her this particularly, but I'd like to say, Madam Governor, what caused you to cut the library board? The state library board, there's gotta be something there.
Well, but at this point, that's kind of moot, because she's gone, she has nothing to do with it anymore. And even if that hadn't happened, we still would be out the money because this is federal money. So in that sense, it's like, yeah, there you go. So, I don't know, I guess I would say,
If the public doesn't know about it, then there's no way that there can be any public statement.
sure.
Well, and our national, federal representatives have not said a word about getting our state library.
No, and actually, the IMLS is up for renewal this
Browns has
year,
been
so,
on that.
My
So-
opinion would be, just because of the budget constraints we've had this year, and we have been talking about our budget is, at this time, until this is resolved, our only option is really to charge the borrower.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how we could give them the option, but say, okay, we have room in the budget if you really can't afford the $5. I
Well,
think
right,
we
and
have
I don't
to
think
be-
that, no, and
Oh, I
you
think
know,
that's what, yeah.
it's gotta be everybody or nobody.
I-
Change the policy for
At
Yeah.
this time, anyway, until we get back to
Right.
budget hearings,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you have to be really careful about making it fair across the board.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
And,
yeah.
But at least the $5 charge would help that with the whole playing nice with other, if there's an expectation that you,
Right.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there hasn't been any discussion, at least with the South Dakota Library Association yet, about what people are gonna be doing. I suspect that's gonna come up
And
pretty
others will,
soon.
yeah.
What other libraries
Other
are gonna
libraries will
do,
have
so.
stuff too,
Yeah, so I think what I'm hearing is that you guys are okay with the $5 option.
Five, yeah.
And then we'll just go ahead, and and usually if somebody requests something, we don't always fill it right off the bat. Sometimes we'll wait and see if another library, that may be closer to
Right.
the person that wants to get it, will say, oh, hey, we've got that, and that's only, and that's, might be better. So, okay, so we'll go ahead and give people that option.
Do you need a motion?
Yeah, do you need a motion on that?
Probably.
Do I have a motion?
I'd make that motion.
I'll second it.
Second, okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign.
All right.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, last thing, and this won't necessarily be long, is just looking at a preliminary budget and kind of explaining a couple of numbers to you guys, so you've kind of got an idea of where we're at. I've got some little boxes, some comment boxes, but they don't show up on this. So, the salaries and wages are set elsewhere. I have no control over that. I am asking, the part-time budget had been 18,000 for a number of years, and I think that's mainly because we only had one part-time person. And so that money was kind of a placeholder in case there was another person, because we could only spend, what they were getting, and they can only work 20 hours a week and all that stuff. But now that we have two, if you start looking at COLA increases, then if that budget stays the same, then we're essentially losing hours every year. So right now I have 20,000 thrown out there as kind of a placeholder. I would have to look at, I haven't done any calculating as far as how much that would actually be for both of our part-time to go 20 hours a week. I'm not sure we actually need that, but I can look at how much they worked last year and then extrapolate from there to see actually how much we need in the budget to pay for them. So that, I'm still crunching those numbers to see where that's gonna be. And then jumping down to professional fees, the way it got set up this year, I don't think is actually correct. Because overdrive was put into professional fees, and it's not a professional fee. It's actually, it would go under supplies and materials, because it's essentially an ebook. So I moved digital resources down to supplies and materials, which is why that's blank. And then for computer support, which I think does fall under professional fees, which would be Koha, our library system, Content Cafe, which are the pictures that show up when you look at the catalog, the tax filing cost, the Social Security filing, but then I also threw in courier service. Just because the way it looks right now, the consortium, if we want to continue ILLs, is probably gonna have to hire the courier. And like I said, it's between, depending on the total cost, it's gonna be anywhere between, and I think I went 31, I think, just, so I went on the high side of it for right now, just because we don't know what that number would actually be right now. But so professional fees would actually end up being almost $9,000, $8,900, and that would cover all of the consortium costs, essentially, for the year. So a substantial jump, but that's kind of where we're at. So then under repairs and maintenance, I also did a little shifting, because for some reason, and I was never quite sure of why, we had computers under equipment maintenance, but we also have computers under supplies and materials. And I don't think they need to be in both places. And depending on what the city decides where that category should be, because they're working on shifting those categories around right now. For right now, I put computers up with equipment maintenance. And so that would be for any physical items, either technology or non-technology related. Mainly technology is the equipment maintenance. And I put that up at 4,000 because I combined the numbers from the two categories. And that gives us the option of purchasing some new technology if we need it. So far things are going pretty well, but we have probably 2 or 3 computers anyway that will need replaced probably in the next year or so. And that would pretty much eat up that 4,000 pretty quickly. And then under building maintenance, I decided to throw in the floor as building maintenance. I mean, we've got the 2,000 in the bank. So I didn't put the full amount. I think I subtracted the 2,000 off of what the bid was. And so I went ahead and put that in the building maintenance budget. I did talk about the ability of us doing that in-house rather than hiring someone, because that, I imagine, would be the majority of the cost. And so we had talked about it. We didn't decide anything. we'd have to look into it more if that was gonna be an option. But anyway, so that's why building maintenance is at 12.5, because it's the normal amount plus the cost of fixing that floor. And then computer subscriptions, I put into repairs and maintenance as well in a separate category. So that's Reboot Restore, which is our security program for the public computers. That's the Zoom cost per year. Fortinet, which is our firewall, and then Adobe Creative Cloud, which we use for lots of different things, putting the newsletters together, creating posters or whatever we're doing, all of that stuff. And that comes to $1,040. So repairs and maintenance comes to $16,500. Then books and supplies, or supplies and materials, sorry, I bumped the book budget up a couple thousand. Again, we just don't know right now. Books are supposedly on the list of items that are not going to be, that are not going to have a tariff on them, but all that stuff's changing on a daily basis, so we just don't know. So book prices could end up going up quite a bit. We'll just have to see. Periodicals, 5,000, I kept that the same. Processing materials, I bumped up to 2,000 because the 1,100 is not enough for processing materials. We are constantly running out of money in that budget line. Office supplies, I bumped up a little bit to 1,000. New programming had got taken out of the budget. I went ahead and put that back in. And one of the reasons for that is the city manager said, you know, he's expecting budgets to return to normal levels if all goes well. So I'm essentially doing the 2025 original budget, and then we'll just have to go from there and see, you know, where things fall. So digital resources, which was up above in professional fees for this year, I brought down, and that's Overdrive. And I increased that a little bit because Overdrive is becoming so popular that I think we need to start spending more money on ebooks just because they're being checked out so often. And the issue is when you go to get a book and it's got a 40-week waiting list, that's kind of ridiculous. I mean, there's only so much we can do about that, but an extra 1,000 for digital books would help to alleviate that a little bit. Postage and meter had been 400. I bumped it up to 15, thinking about not only increases in postage, but also if we end up providing ILL to people and we have to mail stuff. If we don't, $1,500 is going to be closer to what it would probably cost us a year in postage. So I went ahead and threw the money in there, but that's just going to be dependent on what we end up deciding with the ILL stuff. Audio visual, I bumped back up to 3,000. Audiobooks are getting more expensive. DVDs, yes and no, it depends. If you want something that's new, yeah, you're paying $20 plus for it. So it's kind of along the line of a lot of books we get now. And then item number 9, computers. Like I said, I moved that up into equipment maintenance because I think that's just a better place for it. But in its place, the software for the public computers, this may be the place for it in supplies and materials, because that's, and I guess you could argue that could be moved up as well. Again, that's one of those things that I'm going to let the finance office decide, I guess, where that stuff should fall. So we spend about $700 a year on software, and that's for new computers, outfitting them with Office, and that actually takes up pretty much all of that. We don't have fuel costs, and then programming I bumped up as well, just because programming is becoming more expensive. And if we want to increase our options, we're kind of at the limit of what Sierra can do without having outside people come in to do programs, whether that's an author, whether it's, you know, a children's illustrator, whether it's an artist, whatever it is. And so having some more money in the programming budget would then allow us to bring in a few more people throughout the year and increase. And on the adult side as well, that would give us some more opportunities to bring in more things for programming. And then I bumped the travel back up to 3,000. This year's South Dakota Library Association conference is actually a joint conference with North Dakota and with the Mountain Plains Library Association. So it's in Grand Forks. So, I mean, there's no way we can go to that. So, I mean, we can't go to our own state convention unless we want to foot the bill ourselves. And so I think that's something that's important, at least getting one person to be able to go to the state conference is kind of essential. And so that's why I bumped that back up. And heaven forbid we get a chance to go to a national conference, you know, which is important as well. But again, I'm starting kind of small. Utilities, I think is going to have to go up. I think the 4788. I think utilities is actually going to be closer to 4,900 this year, just based on the first quarter costs. So that number I'm actually going to bump up. And then hotspots, I put at 960, which would give us 8 hotspots next year. And again, that will kind of depend on the data and how often they're going out. If the 5 are always checked out and there's 2 or 3 people with holds on them, then I think it would justify adding another few hotspots back into the rotation. So that's what I've got so far. Any thoughts, concerns, editorials? So once I fix the part-time and fix the utilities, and then look at postage a little more closely and have a couple options, then I'll go ahead and forward that on to the city manager and sit down and explain to him what all those numbers are and why they're up there, and then, yeah, then we go from there.
Great.
So I don't know if that's an actionable item or not, but any places where you think there should be more or less money in the budget?
So much of it depends on just like what you said, you know, is the consortium gonna have to get a rogue, or is there gonna be a rogue courier, or is everybody gonna have to send everything? So there's a lot of variables still.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else, Chris?
I've got nothing. I'm out of agenda items, so that's it for me.
We don't have any executive items?
No executive session.
Okay. Then, I could have a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Okay. I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Kelly.
Chris, thank you.
All right.
Very well done.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Hold on, let me end the broadcast.